In a small village in Poland, excitement was growing. The town had only one rabbi. The rabbi had only one son. And the only son of the only rabbi was going to be married to a beautiful young woman of the village. Everyone was looking forward to the wedding, and in honor of the upcoming nuptials, the mayor of the town issued a proclamation. First, the mayor instructed that a huge barrel be built in the middle of the town square. The mayor explained that a ladder should also be constructed to lead up to the top of the barrel, just like the kind of ladder that would lead to the top of the water tower. Next, the mayor decreed that during the coming weeks, everyone in the village was to fill a pail with the best wine from his or her wine cellar and bring it to the village square. Then, each villager was to climb up the ladder and pour the wine in the barrel. That way, the mayor said, on the eve of the wedding, the bride and groom and their guests would tap the barrel and have the sweetest, most wonderful celebration the world had ever known. After the carpenter Shmuel had built a gigantic barrel and set it on top of tall poles, he constructed the ladder. Over the next 2 weeks, hour after hour, day after day, a procession of villagers carried their buckets into the square. Then each villager climbed the ladder and poured the contents of his or her bucket into the barrel. As the days passed, everyone could see the level of the liquid moving up the barrel, because as the moisture was absorbed, it began seeping through the wood. As the barrel became more and more full, the villagers grew more and more excited. Finally, the blessed day of the wedding arrived. The rabbi was cheerful as he married his only son to the beautiful young woman. And after the vows were exchanged, the groom broke the glass. Everyone shouted, "Mazel tov!" and the villagers moved into the town square to begin the celebration. Music was playing, and the villagers sang with joy. They watched from below as the mayor of the town, who had proclaimed that the barrel be built, mounted the ladder and climbed to its top. He carried a mallet with him and stood ready to tap the large barrel. The villagers held empty mugs in their hands and stood ready to fill their glasses with the rich, sweet wine. Mazel tov to our only rabbi, his only son, and the lovely bride, the mayor said. Mazel tov to our village on this happiest day ever. And blessed be God, who has brought joy to this bride and groom and to our small village. Finally, the mayor tapped the barrel and placed his mug under the spigot. Everyone in the village was shouting, "Mazel tov, mazel tov." The entire village fell silent as the mayor turned the spigot and the liquid poured forth. And what flowed from the barrel? Nothing but water. The villagers lowered their eyes with shame. But why? How could this be? Well, you see, for 2 weeks, every villager had thought that he or she could get away with pouring a pail of water in the barrel because, after all, what would one pail of water matter with all that wonderful sweet wine? Each villager had expected the other villagers to do their part, figuring that he or she had to do nothing. What should have been a glorious celebration turned into the saddest day the village had ever known. In commenting on this story, Rabbi Stephen Leader remarks, "Reward is commensurate with effort and sacrifice, so we can't expect everyone to do his or her part while we do nothing. If one partner in a marriage tries to add water because he or she expects the other will bring wine, the couple will have a watered-down marriage. If you try to parent according to that principle, you'll have a watered-down family. And if you behave that way as an employee, you'll work for a watered-down company. If you put nothing into your Judaism, what do you expect to get out of it? What do you expect to get out of your Judaism? What are you looking for from this experience at Beth-El and from this community? Are you looking for water, or will you get wine? Well, Beth-El, and all Jewish institutions for that matter, have a goal. The goal is not self-preservation. It is to engage Jews with Judaism. It's not gaining more members, it's gaining more Jews. It's about people, not programs. It's about deep relationships. Therefore, for each of us as members of this community, in order to get the most from our Judaism, we each need to become a relational Jew, a Jew who views Judaism as impacting virtually all of one's relationships. For Jewish identity is not measured by how many services you attend each month, or how much money you give, or whether you light Shabbat candles. Now, even though all these things are important and indicators of Jewish identification, internal Jewish identity is shaped by the relationships in your life. It is through creating strong Jewish relationships that we can all hope to get the most out of our experiences in this community. This community has truly come together today for a sacred purpose. We have come together to pray and to seek atonement for our transgressions in the previous year. Yet our confession, the vidui, is in the plural possessive. We say, Al chet shachatanu lefanecha, for the sin that we have committed against you. For we are all here together today, taking collective responsibility for each other. In fact, our Torah portion this morning that Rabbi Mecklenburger just read began with the words, Atem N'tzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem. You stand here today, all of you, before Adonai your God, the heads of your tribes, your elders and officers, everyone in Israel, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your camp. Each one of us stands today on this day of atonement in front of God. And yet this day becomes so much easier and so much more spiritually fulfilling when we are in healthy relationships with those standing with us. In his book, Relational Judaism, Dr. Ron Wolfson of the American Jewish University writes of 9 levels of relationships that he sees as necessary to bring each of us into deep, lasting engagement with the Jewish experience. Among these are relationships between you and yourself, between you and your family, between you and your friends, between you and your Jewish living and learning, between you and your community, both sacred and secular, between you and Jewish peoplehood, between you and the state of Israel, between you and the whole world, and finally, between you and God. This morning, I would like to touch on 3 of these: relationships between you and yourself, between you and God, and between you and Jewish living and learning. The first level of relationship that Wolfson says we need to work on is the relationship with ourselves. This relationship allows us to shape our view of the world and decide what type of person we are going to be. Once, the Hasidic Rabbi Zusia came to his followers with tears in his eyes. They asked him, Zusia, what's the matter? And he told them about his vision. I learned the question that the angels will one day ask me about my life. The followers were puzzled. Zusia, you are pious, you are scholarly and humble. You have helped so many of us. What question about your life could be so terrifying that you would be frightened to answer it? Zusia replied, I have learned that the angels will not ask me, why weren't you a Moses, leading your people out of slavery? And that the angels will not ask me, why weren't you a Joshua, leading your people to the promised land? Zusia sighed, they will say to me, Zusia, why weren't you Zusia? This story teaches that we must not live under the pretense of trying to be someone we are not. Rather, we should be happy with who we are as individuals and attempt through our daily lives to be the best individual we can be. That is the message of this holy day. We may not know what the future brings, but we have the opportunity through repentance, prayer, and charity to better ourselves. We have the opportunity during these holy days to examine our own personal relationship and try and improve how we relate to ourselves in the year to come. The second relationship that I would like to speak about is between you and God and is directly related to the first. In examining our relationships with ourselves, it is important to remember how we are created. Nahum Sarna, a biblical scholar, taught that Selam, the word that describes the creation of human beings by God in the book of Genesis, has another meaning besides image. For Sarna, Tselem means symbol. In this reading, every human being is a symbol of God, each with a unique purpose authorized by the Creator. For if we are truly created in the divine image, and each of us is a symbol of God, then our relationship with our Creator must be examined as well. We are Yisrael. Just as Jacob earned this name after wrestling with the angel, so do we as Jews carry the name Yisrael, which celebrates the God wrestler in each of us. For that is the essence of who we are as Jews. We are those who strive for relationships with the divine by questioning and seeking out answers. In her children's book, Let's Talk About God, Dorothy Kripke writes, "We cannot see God, we cannot see many things. We cannot see the wind, but we see the autumn leaves flying and dancing all orange and gold. We see a bright green kite sailing in the sky. Then we know the wind is there. We see what the wind does, even though we cannot see the wind itself. We cannot see love, but we know when someone loves us. We feel love in a hug or a smile, or a friendly look or a warm touch. We feel love in many ways, but we never see love. We know it by what it does to us. We cannot see God, but we do see what God does in the world. We cannot see God, but we know that God is there. God is there, in every place, Bekol Makom. In fact, one of the names we have for God in Hebrew is Hamakom, the place. For God resides within every place, and as we are created in the image of God, within every person. In his work, I Am Thou, renowned Jewish philosopher Martin Buber discusses the principle of God's presence in each person at length. Buber teaches that there are two types of relationships, the I-it relationship and the I-thou. The I-it relationship is the relationship of experience, the relationship of how things affect the individual. The I-it is a relationship in which the other person or object does not have any personal meaning and is only there to help one through an experience. Buber taught that we are told that man experiences his world. What does that mean? It means that man goes over the surface of things and experiences them. He brings back from them some knowledge of their condition and experience. He experiences what there is to things, but it is not experiences alone that bring the world to man. For what they bring to him is only a world that consists of it. For it is not until we engage the other in relationships that we can have the truly holy I-thou, the ani ve'ata experience. For it is within this relationship that we can really know creation and know those around us. To know the ata, to know the you, is to know the silent inner being of our fellow human beings. And when we engage with those around us in I-thou relationships, we will be able to relate to others and find the God place within each other. This is how we will truly be able to relate to and find relationship with God, by searching for the divine in the world and by finding God in other individuals that we meet. Stemming from our relationships with ourselves and also from our relationship with the divine, and for many of us, the reason we are here today is the third type of relationship I would like to discuss with you, our relationship to Judaism and the Jewish community. The development and deepening of this relationship is important because it helps ensure the future of Judaism. But why does Judaism need a future? Rabbi Eli Kampfer answers this question by stating, because Judaism offers a system, a covenantal language, a heritage, and tradition that responds to the human need for meaning, substance, and connection. It is called Torah, the sum total of Jewish sources and texts, the wisdom stored up in our textual heritage. Torah has the power to draw us into conversation, the power to push us to ask bold questions and to transform our relationships. Judaism's future is linked to our relationship to it, and our relationship to Judaism can help guide and enrich our lives. It is our relationship to this community, to Judaism, and to the Jewish people that causes us to understand deep within the dictum, Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh B'zeh, all of Israel. All of the Jewish people are responsible for one another. It is this relationship that led to countless volunteer hours to help the Jews in the Soviet Union. It is this relationship that has led Jews the world over to support the State of Israel. And it is this relationship that leads us to have a communal sense of pride when one of our own does something well, or a communal sense of shame when one of our fellow Jews does something terrible. How many of us were hoping and praying that Bernie Madoff was not Jewish? And how many of us take pride in Sandy Koufax or Albert Einstein? It is our connection and our relationship to the Jewish community that leads us to experience these emotions and these reactions. And it is our relationship to the Jewish community that leads us to this sacred space on this sacred day. We all have a relationship with Judaism and the Jewish people. Otherwise, we would not be here marking Yom Kippur together. But let this Yom Kippur not only be a day of atonement, let it be a day of at-one-ment, where we pledge to become better individuals, to work in the coming year to strengthen the uniqueness and the bonds of this community by strengthening our relationships to the Beth-El community, with the temple as a whole, and with its individual members. Let us work to make sure all who come here are welcome and engaged in conversation as we get to know each other better. My first day in Fort Worth this past June happened to be a Friday. After a lovely Shabbat dinner at the Mecklenburgers, I came to services at the temple. Almost immediately after walking through the door, I was welcomed and introduced to the group waiting for services to begin. And I know many of you have had a similar experience. Well, we all need to make sure that this was not a unique experience for me alone or for any individual. But we need to make sure that we are going out of our way to make the stranger, in fact, to make anyone who walks through the door, to feel welcome. Furthermore, we want to hear from you. Later this month, a series of focus groups will be held, primarily with members of young families, asking what you are looking for in your temple and in your Jewish community. We hope to use this knowledge to better understand the needs of our community. And for those of you who are not young families, we want to hear from you as well. Please know that there is always a place for suggestions and feedback in order to help strengthen each of your experiences and relationships at the temple. But relationships can't happen without engagement. That is why I would like each of you to, just for a moment, engage in a short exercise of cheshbon hanefesh, an accounting of your souls and your lives. How often do you come to temple? It's not a judgmental question. Just think about it. Well, I would like to challenge each of you to become more active so that we can build together your relationship with this community. Specifically, I would like to ask each person here to commit to coming to the temple 12 more times in the new year than you did in the previous one. 12 times, just once a month. If you're in the building for one reason or another every week, then I challenge you to find 12 more opportunities to be involved. And if it has been since the last High Holy Day since you have come through these doors, I challenge you as well to find 12 opportunities just once a month to be involved. Now, if you all find more than 12, that's great too. But let's start with 12. For I want each of us to create and foster real and honest relationships that are built around a wide variety of interactions, whether through the celebration of Shabbat and holidays, study, work on social justice projects, or even just through opportunities to be social with each other. We can all learn together, grow together, and create lasting relationships with each other and our Judaism that will strengthen ourselves and the future of the Jewish people. During each service we read these words, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And this afternoon we will read from the book of Leviticus what has been called the central mitzvah in the Torah, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Dr. Wolfson teaches that from these two commandments to love, we can learn that in the end, the purpose of Judaism, the purpose of relationships, is to love the other and God. When you do, you find meaning. In understanding of the significance of life, you find purpose. An imperative to do what you are put on earth to do during your life. You find belonging, a community of people who will be there for you and with you, and you find blessing, a feeling of deep satisfaction and gratitude, a calendar and life cycle of opportunities to celebrate the gifts of life. It is all about relationships, and creating and deepening them is a challenge to our temple as a whole and to each of us as individuals. For when we strengthen our relationships between each one of us and ourselves, between us and God, and between us and Judaism and the Jewish people, we will truly be able to see the rewards in our lives, and each of us will be able to, together as a community, drink our share of wine and not water at the celebration that is our lives. May the building and deepening of these relationships be our challenge and our goal in the year ahead. Gemar Chatima Tova. May this future be sealed for each of us as a blessing. Amen.